prop perspective to start off a new week live right here on this Monday on the early line. That can only mean one thing. It's the jack of all trades from FanDuel. Tom Vecchio joins us on TEL to start off this new week, but also look back on the weekend that it was. Game 2 of the 2024 NBA Finals. Game 1 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Final. Ahead of game number 2 tonight in Sunrise between the Panthers and the Oilers. And maybe an MLB bet from the home run prop king on this Monday as well. Vecchio, as always, we appreciate the time. Hope the weekend was good.
Thanks for having me. It was a solid weekend. I got to say that the Mavericks are looking to be in a bit of a tough spot. I have faith in the Oilers. Lots to get to today. Let's go.
So, Vecchio, let's start with game number 2. 105-98, the Celtics victorious, and they take a 2-0 series advantage. Boston does cover as a closing 6.5-point favorite for a second consecutive game. Pre-game total at 215 plus does stay well under. What has the biggest story of the first 2 games of the NBA Finals been in your estimation?
If Jason Tatum is going to be held to under 20 points in both games, and the Celtics are still winning, the Mavs are cooked. Like, if they are being this efficient and everyone else is chipping in, doing just a little bit. It was a big game from Porzingis in game 1. It was Holiday last night. Brown's doing his thing. We're getting some consistent scoring from Witt, rebounding from Horford. If everyone else is doing their thing and Tatum's still being largely held in check, this is going to be a 4-1 series. So it is getting late early for the Mavs, I guess you want to say. Like, they have to get something going, and someone else has to help Luka because he is doing everything he possibly can, and someone else needs to step up and get some scoring going. Or, like I said, this is going to be a quick series.
Yeah, Tom, it doesn't look good right now for the Dallas Mavericks, but they do head back to their home court here. We'll see if they can get some good home court cooking. But also, let me ask you this question. You take a look at the finals money line and series prices here, where you're saying to yourself, is there a buy-in chance that you possibly could have on Dallas? Because as we take a look at that graphic, it's a plus 660 price if you buy in on Dallas. Boston is such a heavy favorite at minus 1,000. Do any of these price points pique your interest right now?
Well, I have the Mavs at plus 1.5 on the series. So, I would have to get into the Celtics winning, 4-1 or 4-2 to look at some potential hedge opportunities. I think that's probably the best call to go. Maybe 4-1. You think the Mavs sneak out one game just because of the home momentum. But ultimately, the Celtics will then right the ship in game 4. They close that in 5. So that's probably the best spot to go. And ultimately comes down to if you have other series bets on the line. I have the Mavs plus 1.5. I have the series going 7 games. So I got to do some math in terms of figuring out what's the best way to hedge, and ultimately there might not be a way to hedge at this point. The Celtics are just too good and going to run away with this series.
So, Vecchio, it's getting late early, and it certainly is. The Celtics up with that 2-0 series advantage as we get ready for game number 3 in 2 nights, a Wednesday in Dallas as we change venue for the first time. The Mavs booked as actually a short 1.5-point favorite on the spread, minus 122 on the money line. The odds makers, even if ever so slightly, expect Dallas to get at least 1 back at home in the Lone Star State. If that happens, what is the reason why?
It's probably because someone else, maybe it's Derek Jones, maybe it's PJ Washington, maybe it's Lively, like someone else has to do a little bit more on offense alongside Luka, and Kyrie really needs to come out and score at a more consistent rate. He scored, 8 points in the first quarter last night, got off to a good start, thought they were going to keep the game close. They were within 2 points at the end of the first quarter, whatever it was, and then just, fell off. So it has to be at a more consistent rate. And you can say that at any time they started off game 1, the first 7 or so minutes, pretty strong, and then they just fell apart. So everyone needs to do just a little bit more rebounding, knocking down more threes would be great. Obviously, they're not super efficient either. Or the Celtics in game 2, so it has to just be step by step. It can't just be an avalanche of shots all at once. It has to be doing the little things right to put together a full, 4 quarters of a game.
We take a look at game number 3, and in the first 2 games, obviously the Celtics had home court advantage and were favored by 6 and 7 points respectively. But now we see a flip over, and the Dallas Mavericks are favorites in game number 3. Number 1, Tom, do you agree with that? And also, number 2, what's your approach to game number 3?
I think that's fine. I wouldn't expect too much scoring in this game. I think the 1.5 points is fine. If you want to take the Celtics, you just think they're too good and they're going to end up covering. You get them at plus money. I think that's also fine. Ultimately, from a player prop perspective, I want to go to Horford over 6.5 rebounds, this thing at plus 114. Porzingis was at 6 and 4 rebounds in the first 2 games. That means he hit the under in both the games. And if he's going to be out there primarily as a shooter, like he's not going to be crashing the boards on every single time he's out there. That means Horford is going to be that primary rebounder. So I'll just roll with what's working right now, and that's Horford rebounding and Porzingis scoring.
So Horford is the look for game number 3. What is your favorite prop? Because we won't speak again, at least here on the early line, until well after Wednesday night.
Yeah, that would be Horford over 6.5 rebounds at plus 114. Like I said, if we look at Porzingis in terms of field goal attempts per minute, like he's on the court, they get him the ball, he shoots. That is his role. He's great at blocking shots, great as a rim defender. But again, I'm worried about his knee. Like every time you're showing a slow-mo replay, I'm looking at his legs. Like crashing the boards shouldn't be his priority. It should be everyone else doing that so they can keep him out there for that 20 to 25 minutes. They can be effective when he's out there.
All right, let's flip it over to the ice, and we'll go down to South Florida. We have a 1-0 series lead by the Panthers here. Game number 2 setting up with Edmonton and Florida at the FanDuel Sportsbook. We actually had an opening number, the minus 152 price in the favor of Florida. That's now dipped to a minus 140 price and a total of 5.5. Does this series get evened up tonight on the ice here, Tom?
I think it does, and I think the Oilers played really well in Game 1. Total shot attempts were in favor of the Oilers, 70-42. High danger shot attempts were in favor of the Oilers, 18-6. We look at the Oilers, 3.74 expected goals, and the Panthers at 1.85. So besides scoring, the Oilers did a whole lot right, and that last goal was an empty net goal. So really it was a 2-0 game. They did a lot right. They limited the chances for the Panthers, who have been unbelievable at generating chances over the past 2 series, as we saw. So I like the Oilers to record at 10-plus shots in the first period, which we saw them do in Game 1. 10 in the first, 9 shots in the second, sitting at plus 112. I think they have to come out with that energy, because if they give up that first goal, that crowd's going to get behind them. The Panthers are just going to get into the grind, do what they do on the forecheck, and ultimately it's going to be a remake of Game 1. So the Oilers have to come out with that energy to start the first period.
It was a very clean sheet for Bob. 32 shots faced, 32 saves made by Sergei Bobrovsky. You had there not only the Oilers with 10-plus shots in that opening period, but the best player in hockey, Edmonton's Connor McDavid, finding twine tonight. Vecchio, if that happens, and you can explain why you are looking at McDavid, does Edmonton even this series with a victory in Game 2?
I think they do. Plus 165 for a McDavid goal is a line we essentially never get. He had 6 shots on goal in Game 1. As the series goes on, if the scoring is still going to be limited, McDavid's minutes are going to be creeping up a hair here, a hair there, because they can't be rolling the fourth line and the third line too much if they're literally not scoring. And that means more McDavid, more Draisaitl, more Zach Hyman, Ryan Hopkins. All those players have to do more. So at plus 165 for the best player in the world who had 6 shots on goal in the first game, I will take that every single time.
Conn Smythe Awards here. Let's take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook. How about this? Sergei Bobrovsky at a plus 210 price after a Game 1 shutout. And now we see Connor McDavid in second place here in the odds market at a plus 310 price. And then Barkov for the Panthers at plus 340. Sergei Bobrovsky right now looks like he could be that guy. And apparently, look, if he's going to hold them to 2 goals or less in each one of these games here and win a Stanley Cup, it's probably going to be him. Do you agree with Bobrovsky being the favorite? Also, do you think he can actually win this, Conn Smythe?
I think he can. Last week when I was here, I spoke about Carter Verhaeghe at 24-1 to win the Conn Smythe, and that's still going to be my pick. He scored the first goal in the last game, which means it's technically the game-winning goal. So if Bobrovsky gives up a few goals here or there, and you still see Verhaeghe scoring at that high rate and the important goals, that's still going to be my pick. I have that position on Verhaeghe. It was at 24-1. It's now at 19-1. Game-winning goals win you cups. Yes, Bobrovsky is amazing. He's been doing great things, and if he continues to shut them out, he'll win it, of course. But I still got to roll with Verhaeghe as my guy.
Listen, if we get a higher scoring series overall outside of the opening game, then Verhaeghe at 19-1 makes a lot of sense. Vecchio, 30 seconds left. 7-game MLB slate. What's the best bet?
It's probably going to be Bobby Witt, 2+ total bases, sitting at minus 125, going up against Carlos Rodon. And I wouldn't mind a Sal Perez home run as well. Rodon, again, gives up 25 balls to righties. Really nice hitting weather out there in Kansas City today. See some runs on the Royals side, at least tonight.
What about a little lefty on lefty? Vinny Pasquantino, RBI shot in Compton. Maybe could happen. He's our guy. More MLB plays next.